Hello everybody, my name is Necroxis, and I usually don't do video game reviews itself, but due to the nature of how big and how important Kingdom Hearts 3 is to kind of like the gaming cultural zeitgeist, and how invested I personally have been in the Kingdom Hearts franchise for almost 20 years, I wanted to give some substantial thoughts about Kingdom Hearts 3. Because, man, it is a mixed bag of a game for me. Which is kind of sad to report. I won't be talking about spoilers until a little bit later on, so if you're curious, I guess I'll be talking about the worlds when they appear, but we know of all of them. So if you haven't played the game at all and you want to not watch this till you're done, that's fine, come back when you're finished, but I'll let you know when we get actually into the story spoilers, so I really want to explain why ultimately the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 kind of soured my opinion on like the entire franchise, and why that is, and why I'm just so kind of disappointed with what Nomura chose to do with the end of the franchise. So, alright, starting out, I'm going to be talking about the worlds a little bit. So, there are, outside of the main series of games, which is Kingdom Hearts 1, Kingdom Hearts 2, and Kingdom Hearts 3, this Kingdom Hearts 3 has the least amount of worlds. However, they are larger than any of the other worlds in the other games, but I don't necessarily think that that is a good thing. And it's very strange, and as I'm watching more and more people play Kingdom Hearts, while I'm watching it, I'm playing on Twitch, because I've already finished the game, obviously, while I'm watching them play it on Twitch and watching them play it on YouTube, I'm coming to wonder if a bunch of the game didn't just get completely cut when they switched engines in the middle of development. I'm kind of wondering if they just didn't like cut like large portions of what they had developed to fit into this new Unreal Engine that they started using the game in. All of the worlds look amazing, and one of the things I should stress before I get into some of my criticisms is there's a lot of very good things here. The graphics are phenomenal. The combat is very satisfying, even if there are some parts of it that I feel could be fixed better, which we'll get on later. The music is damn good. But for the worlds, I've noticed, except for the very, very last world, the last Disney world, which is San Francisco, Big Hero 6, I noticed that they all follow a pattern. And the pattern of the worlds are, you show up to an immediately recognizable area from the Disney franchise property. So for example, Olympus, Hercules World, which is the first world you go to. You show up in the middle of the town, which you can immediately recognize from the Disney movie, and then you do a little bit of the introduction to the world, you fight some Heartless at the beginning, the threat of the world is explained, and then you go forward. And then you spend probably 70+% of the world in this weird, drawn out, different various repeating of the same assets of the level until you get to the very end of the world, where in the very end of the world ends again in a very recognizable part of the franchise. So for example, the Hercules world begins in the town of Thebes. From the movie, you completely recognize it. It ends up in Olympus, completely recognizable from the movie. But the biggest chunk of the middle of the game, of the world, is different parts of the city, which basically all look the same, with very little tweaks here and there. And then the most egregious part of Olympus is you spend maybe 50% of the world in this cliffs section, where you're just like out in the wilderness, like trying to get from the city to Olympus, and you're in like a cliff area, and then you're in like a cliff area, but it's a little darker, because there are storm clouds, and then you're in the cliff area where you're completely shadowed, because you're like in a tunnel area. Then you're in the cliff area where it's raining, and you have a boss fight, and then you get to Olympus. And Olympus is very drawn out as well, where you're at like the entrance to Olympus, and then you're at the beginning hallways of Olympus, and then you're at various rooms of Olympus, and then you're at like the sky portion of Olympus. And I feel like Kingdom Hearts 2 was justly criticized for having worlds that were large with not a lot of things in them, and I feel like that complaint is exactly the same for Kingdom Hearts 3, but arguably it's even a little worse, because Kingdom Hearts 3 uses like the same assets very slightly altered to make the worlds feel way longer than they necessarily should be. And again, for some reason, Big Hero 6 is the only world where this isn't the case. And part of me is wondering if, because Big Hero 6 was the first Kingdom Hearts 3 world that was announced, I would imagine they completed that one the quickest. And so they had this template of how all the worlds should be, like Big Hero 6. And Big Hero 6 is also the shortest world. So then I imagine they began finishing the worlds and then realized, we don't have a lot of worlds and people are getting through the worlds very quickly. We have to find ways to stretch out the game. So then you'll have like 2, 3, 4 hour segments, I'm not exaggerating, where you're just going through like the same terrain over and over and over and over again. And I'm just unsure what the purpose of all of it was. Olympus really, or Hercules really suffers from this. Toy Story is particularly egregious with this because they don't use any of the locations from the story except for Andy's room. They even go to a toy store, but it's not the toy store from the second movie. It's a different toy store. So I'm wondering, why didn't you go to the locations from the actual franchise? Like, they could have went to Sid's house, which looked really different from Andy's house. They could have went to Pizza Planet. They could have went to like the big grab machine from Pizza Planet, which looked really different. They could have went to the toy store from the actual second movie. They could have went to the airport from the second movie. They could have went to the factory from the third movie, but they don't. You go to Andy's house, and then you spend 95% of the level in this generic toy store that really has nothing to do with anything. And I'm just, it's confusing to me because it seems like a huge missed opportunity if you have all these Disney franchises that have never been in Kingdom Hearts. You know, Toy Story, Tangled, Monsters, Inc., Frozen, Pirates of the Caribbean, which has been in Kingdom Hearts 2, but this version of it is completely different. You had all these worlds that have never been in Kingdom Hearts, but you never utilized them interestingly. Tangled is another example. It's not as bad as some of the other ones because you have Rapunzel's Tower, and then you have, which is one of the areas, you have the forest, which is recognizable from the movie, but then they draw out the forest area by having like the forest area in the sunny weather, the forest area in the cloudy weather, the forest area where it's totally overcast, the forest area when it's raining. The cave from the movie, which is fine, and then you finally get to the castle at the very end. But all that stuff in the middle, I'm like, I didn't need to see any of this. You could have found a better way to incorporate the other areas of the actual movie into the game. Monsters Inc. is, outside of Toy Story, maybe the worst example of this because, again, 90+% of the game is just going through hallways in the factory from room to room to room to room, which they do try to make look different, but they're not anything from the movie. We don't have, like, the North Pole section from the movie. We don't have, like, in the middle of the city, which is apart from the movie. We don't have, going into Boo's room or any of the other rooms from the movie. It's just you're in the factory for the entire world, and it just ultimately becomes not super interesting visually, and ultimately I would find myself, while I was playing through the worlds, wondering, this is boring. I just want to get to the end of the world to see the story, which we'll get on a little bit later, but the Disney worlds are almost completely irrelevant to any of the story in this game. So Frozen is also super interesting because there are a lot of locations in Frozen that, like I said, are just unused. You spend like half of the game in this ice maze that's not in the movie, instead of like all of the locations of the movie. I don't understand why they chose to do that. The only world I'll give a pass to this on is Pirates of the Caribbean, because even though all of the different islands you can go to look the same, at least it was a different change of pace, and if I wanted to, I could have just skipped all the optional islands and went to the final boss of the world pretty quickly. But I did have to say, I did have a lot of fun in Pirates of the Caribbean, going from island to island to island to island to island, just exploring, because it's something that's not really done in games like this, and I was surprised, and it actually was kind of fun. And then again, Big Hero 6, like I said, is not like this. Big Hero 6 goes very quickly. It really feels like, again, it does run into the problem where the only locations are just the city and Hero's room, which I don't know why they chose to do that, rather than some of the other locations, like, you know, in the school or in the nether space at the end of the movie. But at least the world goes fast, and it never feels like my time is being wasted, to be honest. So, and then we have the 2 worlds at the end of the game, which I have no problem with, and I'm not going to spoil it this second. So, ultimately, I think the worlds were maybe the most disappointing that they've ever been in Kingdom Hearts, and I'm just unsure as to what happened in development to make them add in such long stretches of filler in almost all the worlds, when you could have just spent as much development time as using actual locations from the franchise properties. And again, because the story of the Disney worlds is almost completely irrelevant, it doesn't even matter. You don't have to make up a story reason as to why you're going to Sid's house. Just, I mean, this is a franchise where Nomura definitely didn't write it ahead of time and is ass-pulling things at the last second constantly. You can explain a reason why you go to Sid's house in Toy Story, or you go into, you know, the city of Arendelle in Frozen, or why you go to Boo's house in Monsters, Inc. Like, you can just ass-pull a reason and I would be totally fine with it. This is the ass-pulliest ass-pull franchise that exists, Kingdom Hearts, where shit is just made up at the last second and you're like, oh, that's what it was all along, I guess. So, I don't know. The worlds were kind of disappointing. The 2 worlds at the end of the game, I had no problems with. They looked great, and there was a lot of cool things that happened there, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So, those are the worlds. I like the franchises that were included, but I felt like it was a huge missed opportunity. So, alright, getting to the combat. The combat, again, is also kind of a mixed bag for me. It's punchy, satisfying, maybe the best that it's ever been, but it's too complicated, and they add in things that break the game incredibly easily that you can't turn off, which I wish they could. There's so many different things you can do in combat that it's kind of overwhelming, so I'm going to list them all here. You have basic attack combinations, you have magic, you have combos finishers, which really change up how your game is. You can have finishers that make you dash to the enemy, finishers that can do an AoE around you, finishers that can shoot off a projectile, finishers that can shoot off a bunch of projectiles, and you can equip and unequip all of these as you want. You have link attacks, which are essentially summons from the other games. They changed this to call them link attacks, kind of like Birth by Sleep. You have shot lock attacks, which is when you hit R1 and the reticle comes up and you have to aim the enemy to hit them a bunch of times. You have Keyblade forms, which essentially are you use your Keyblade to fill up a bar, and then once you do, you transform your Keyblade into something else, and then your attack pattern changes, and the way you attack enemies changes for a short time. And then you even have attraction attacks, which are basically just Disney rides that you enter into a cutscene and maybe push one button for over a minute plus of a cutscene visual spectacular thing. Most of the time, I didn't even use shot lock attacks. I eventually would try to actively avoid attraction attacks, and link attacks or summons are so bad, except for Simba, that I just avoided them completely. I think I used Simba twice the entire game, and none of the other link attacks. Oh, I tried them all once, but after that, never used them a single time. And the reason, for example, shot lock attacks are very good, but the problem is they're too good. Like, they break the game. There are lots of things in this game that just completely break the game. It's by far the easiest game of any of the entries in the series. I don't know why they chose to make it so incredibly easy. I played it on standard, and like 2 hours, or like, not 2, I was like 4 or 5 hours in, I was like, man, I really wish I could just manually change it to proud mode. But I wouldn't. I'd have to restart the whole thing, so I just played through the whole thing as standard. But I watched other people play through it on proud mode, doing the same thing that I did on standard, and they also were having no problems. I don't think I died a single time in the game. But anyway, going back to the shot locks, the attractions, and the link attacks, or the summons. I never really used them a lot because how much of time they took away from you for a very lengthy attack animation that you're often only hitting one button during, or for link attacks, you're only holding a button down and they're not doing anything else. Furthermore, nearly all the link attacks or summons seem completely useless, like I said, outside of Simba. I have some notes here I'm reading, but I was skipping ahead. Simba is so overpowered that he can basically destroy every group of enemies within about the first 10 seconds of being summoned, which is not fun because I don't want to just summon one thing and hit 2 buttons and kill everything. Like, I want to actually play the game when I'm fighting stuff in combat. Attraction attacks are special attacks that the game throws at you constantly, where you enter a Disneyland ride to attack your enemies. So, like the flying ship, you know, Splash Mountain, you know, the train. The problem is these completely and utterly break the game due to how strong that they are. And ultimately, I would end up just completely avoiding them due to just not how not fun they were, and how long they were, and how overpowered that they were. Every single boss fight, they throw multiple attraction attacks at you, because the way that you get them is an enemy will have like a green circle appear above them, and once you hit them, you can get the attraction to attack. And then once you use it, it's gone, and you have to find another one at some point. But in boss fights, they would throw multiple versions of this at you, which could drain like 3, 4, or 5 health bars for virtually no effort on your part. You just hit one button as the attraction animation is going on, and I'm just thinking, when I'm sitting here, I'm going, this is not fun, and it's breaking the game, and I would be fine with it if I could turn off attraction attacks entirely from showing up, but you can't. And they throw them at you so much that you're avoiding them so much that it's just, I really don't understand why they were included. It definitely seems like a Disney wanted this to be here to break the game inclusion, and I just didn't get it. Keyblade forms are actually pretty fun and interesting. Like I said, they transform your Keyblade once you fill up a combo bar from using it sequentially, and it really changes up how you fight for a limited amount of time. However, I can't help but feel these were meant to be a poor man's version of the limit forms from Kingdom Hearts 2. The limit forms were probably my favorite combat mechanic in the entire franchise. And for those who didn't play Kingdom Hearts 2 or forgot, limit forms were timed forms that you could transform into that would drastically change how you played the game. So, for example, the first one you got was Valor Form. You would activate Valor Form, Goofy goes away, so it's just you and Donald, and you dual-wield Keyblades, and you just become like a melee powerhouse with an insane amount of combo extensions and really cool combo finishers. Or another one is the Wisdom Form, where Donald goes away, and you become like a spellcasting powerhouse, amazing user of magic, which was my favorite one because I'm always a huge Magic fan in RPGs. And then you could have like Final Form, which is you use both your allies and just fly around while you have the Keyblades just swirling around you, and it's just, they were so fun, and I loved leveling them up. I loved blowing the limit form during a boss fight that's particularly hard and being like, this guy is so hard that I have to use my limit form right here, otherwise I can't survive. And it really felt like a strategic choice I was making at times when I was playing it on Proud mode or Critical mode. And it kind of seems like Keyblade forms are a poor man's version of this. That isn't to say that they are bad, because they are fun. For example, and some of the Keyblade forms are actually very reminiscent of the limit forms from Kingdom Hearts 2, but they're not all the way there. So, for example, the Keyblade you get from Tangled, the Keyblade form of that weapon transforms the Keyblade into a staff. And for a limited amount of time, when you're using the staff, all of your magic casting abilities are amplified. So your magic attacks do more damage, your basic attacks aren't even like a Keyblade hit, it's like a staff that you're shooting projectiles out of. And the final attack, every Keyblade form has like a final attack. And the final attack of it is completely busted. But it's not the same thing as Wisdom Form. And I felt like Wisdom Form was more fun. I was actually choosing what spells to use to weave together while I'm in Wisdom Form, whereas in Kingdom Hearts 3, I'm just kind of spamming Thundaga and killing everything. Which is satisfying, but ultimately not super challenging, if that makes sense. That isn't to say, like I've been saying before, that the game isn't hard. You can very easily break this game between attraction attacks. Magic is very powerful in this game for some reason. I would say Kingdom Hearts 3 is the easiest game in the franchise by a long shot. There is no critical mode. I don't know why. There's actually a few weird omissions from this game that have been in all the other Kingdom Hearts games. There's no critical mode, and there's a very distinct lack of super bosses. there is arguably only one super boss to fight after you've beaten the game. And it's not like an interesting boss fight like Sephiroth or Kurtzisa or the Phantom or Roxas from Kingdom Hearts 2 or Lingering Will from Birth by Sleep. It's just kind of a unique Heartless enemy. It feels pretty underwhelming, to be honest. So you have a game where you can easily break the combat with no critical mode and no super hard super bosses, which is very strange in a series that did have casual modes to things, but if you wanted to have a hard game, you could make yourself have a hard game. And I just didn't really understand why the difficulty part of that equation just got removed for some reason. It's strange to me. So it's I don't know. I really would like to know. I'm really curious why. I feel like a lot of things were cut out of the game during the complete development. When I'm not sure why. So now let's get to the story. Here we go. This is going to be the spoiler part. So just be warned. This is going to spoil the entire story. It's going to spoil the epilogue and the secret ending. Here we go. 95+% of the story happens in the last 3 to 4 hours of the game. And this is in a 30 to 40 hour game. The Disney worlds are almost completely irrelevant. And oftentimes I found myself asking, what the hell am I even doing here? What is the point of this? The only story reason you're given to be even going to different Disney worlds is Sora's trying to find the power of waking so he can save Aqua and Ventus and Terra from their terrible fates. The problem with the power of waking is they never explain the rules to it. And it can kind of just do whatever it wants whenever the story necessitates it doing. To the point that it suddenly introduces this idea that the power of waking can be misused, and if you misuse it, you can die, which gets introduced in literally the last hour of the story, which then gets used to cliffhanger the entire franchise. But I'll get to that in a little bit. So you're told you have to go to these Disney worlds to train up to get the power of waking because you lost all your powers in Dream Drop Distance when you nearly became a puppet of Xehanort. And so I'm in these Disney worlds, and nothing is happening in the Disney worlds that tie it back to the main story. Every world has an Organization 13 member show up and spout some vague comment on what's going on in this Disney world is somehow important to their overall plan, but you could completely remove the Organization member from the Disney world and nothing of value would have been lost. Which then makes me say, if the Disney worlds are so unimportant, why include them? And I know it's because Disney owns half of Kingdom Hearts. But my point is, compare that to Kingdom Hearts 1. The Disney worlds were vitally important to Kingdom Hearts 1. The main MacGuffin of the storyline were the Princesses of Heart, 6 of which, except for Kairi, were from Disney worlds. You had Alice, you had Jasmine, you had Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, Snow White, Belle from Beauty and the Beast, and then Kairi. 6 of the 7 were from Disney worlds, and sure, you didn't go to every Disney world that they showed up in the first game, but you went to some of them, and the reason you're going there is because you're trying to find the keyholes of the hearts and trying to eventually protect the Princesses of Heart. So the Disney worlds were critical to the storyline at one point in Kingdom Hearts 1. In this one, they don't matter in the slightest. So much so that they introduced this story beat that goes nowhere of, oh, there's a new 7 Princesses of Heart, because due to the events of Kingdom Hearts 1, the original 7 Princesses of Heart, except for Kairi, because ass-pulling Nomura just said she doesn't she doesn't count for this for some reason, but the 7 Princesses of Heart originally in Kingdom Hearts 1, except for Kairi, their powers are gone because of the events of Kingdom Hearts 1, and now their powers have gone into the new 7 Princesses of Heart, which Kairi is still one, because whatever, she's special for some reason. But you don't even learn who all of the other 6 are. You learn 4 of their identities. And for some reason, Elsa and Anna from Frozen there's 2 in one world, I guess. You have, I'm trying to remember the other ones off the top of my head. You had, let's see, Hercules. I'm trying to remember who's Frozen had two. Oh, Rapunzel, obviously, is one from Tangled. I'm trying to remember who the other ones are. Big Hero 6 didn't have one. Pirates didn't have one. Toy Story didn't have one. Tangled. I'm forgetting the fourth one, but they are off the top of my head. But they reveal 4 of the 6, and it's like, but that plot point doesn't go anywhere. Like it doesn't pay off. It has no relevance to the conclusion of Xehanort's battle or his plan. I don't know why. It felt like they included that to pretend that the Disney worlds matter, but they ultimately didn't. And the reason that they didn't is because the storyline didn't then go anywhere. Like, there's no point of them being there. So I really wish the Disney worlds mattered to the story in any regard. All of the story is contained in the last 2 worlds, which are, well, arguably 3, but 2. The Keyblade Graveyard, the final world, which is the afterlife, I guess, and Scala ad Kylum, which is the final area of the game, which they showed off in the last couple trailers. Which you really can't even call a world, because you go there, take a few steps, and then you're in the final boss battle. But, you know, whatever, we're going to count it as a world. So, the story is it's all over the place, and there's a lot of fan service in Kingdom Hearts, which I'm totally fine with. Like, Kingdom Hearts is the fan service game, and I loved all of the fan service in the game except for the last 20 seconds of it, and that's ultimately my problem. Like I said at the very beginning, the last 20 seconds of the game spoils the entire franchise for me, and it's because Xehanort gets defeated, everyone's back, you know, Xion, Roxas are back, reunited with Axel. The Axel, Xion, and Roxas cutscene actually made me cry like a baby. Terra gets saved, Ventus comes back, and Aqua gets saved. They're back together again. Everyone's happy. Even Naminé comes back to life through the use of these clones that they introduced in Chain of Memories, but then became a huge important part of the story because Nomura couldn't think of any way to actually bring all these characters back other than sticking their consciousness into these clones and then saying, oh, that means that they're now human. Whatever, sure, I'll buy it. But, so, I just want to... So the very end of the game is So Kairi is useless. Kairi is not an actual character. Kairi is a plot point in the franchise. And I'm so disappointed. I never cared one way or the other about Kairi. I didn't dislike her, but she was never a super important character to me as a fan. But she is critical to the story. Like, she causes many things to happen. When the entire group of protagonists dies in the final world, just at the very beginning of it, through unexplained bullshittery, Kairi somehow saves Sora's life because she's a princess of heart and her light can never be destroyed, so she can bring him back to life like in Kingdom Hearts 1 in a completely vague and unexplained manner. But she gets used only as plot motivation for Sora. She has no actual agency of her own. She doesn't do anything but get kidnapped or killed. She doesn't matter as an actual character because she's not one. In this game, she spends 95% of it off-screen training because at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, she wields a Keyblade, which was like super cool because Riku gives her one, which completely breaks the rules of how Keyblades work, but whatever, Nomura ass-pulled that story too. So Kairi can use a Keyblade at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, and then at the end of Dream Drop Distance, we find out, oh shit, she's gonna train to be a Keyblade wielder. That's amazing. That was finally where I was like, oh shit, Kairi's actually gonna be a character. So then Kingdom Hearts 3, they have 3 high-res cutscenes of Kairi and Axel talking about how they're training to be a Keyblade wielder. We never see any of it. It happens off-screen in some hyperbolic time chamber forest that Merlin made up. There is actually a duel between Kairi and Axel that happens at the end of their training that they talk about that we never see. And despite all of that, despite Kairi training to be a Keyblade wielder for the entire game, literally at the end, all she does is kill 2 generic Heartless, get kidnapped by Xemnas, and then get killed by Xehanort to make Sora angry, and to fulfill his plan. Kairi is so completely underutilized that it's actually insulting to the character that she exists, rather than... I would rather Kairi just not even be a human being, and just be like a magic dog, or be like a sword that they have to get. Because she's so unimportant as an actual character that she could be an item. She could be a sword. She could be a shield. She could be a box. A magic black box that we never find anything out about. She could be an inanimate object because all she is plot motivation. She has no agency of her own. So, to go back to the ending and why I disliked it, Xehanort gets defeated. You know, the whole battle with Xehanort at the end I had no problem with. You know, it's interesting now that I'm reflecting back on it, there was so much of the plot that I was willing to forgive. If they would have given me a good ending, now that I didn't like the ending, I'm annoyed at how many plot holes there are. But at the end of the game, everyone's back. They're reunited. They're all on Destiny Islands, like partying it up. And because Kairi died at the very end of the game, Sora told everyone he's going to go use the power of waking to save her. Somehow, because it's never explained, the power of waking is never explained in any satisfying way. And then suddenly, in the very last hour of the story, Xehanort and Mickey begin introducing this idea that if you use the power of awakening incorrectly, it can kill you, so watch out, Sora! So obviously, Nomura kills off Kairi to make Sora use the power of awakening, so that Sora can then die and not be at the end of the game. The end of the story. So the story ends with all the other protagonists super happy and hanging out, and then we see Kairi and Sora holding hands by the Paopu tree on Destiny Islands, and Kingdom Hearts 3 is when they really drive home the romance between Kairi and Sora, although they do it in a PG way, and they never say, like, I love you, they never, like, not even, like, a sweet kiss or anything. Like, Sora, I think the most we get is Sora makes some cringy comment, like, I feel strong with you, Kairi, at the very end of the game, right before he dies. But we see them holding hands, and I was like, oh my god, that's perfect, that's a great way to end. And then Sora fades away like he was Thanos snapped. And then the actual revelation is Kairi was brought back to life by Sora, but Sora died, and she's sitting there sad crying because he's gone. So because Nomura is a super huge edgelord, he couldn't even give a satisfying conclusion to the story arc of the game and let all the characters be together and be happy. And that is my biggest problem with Kingdom Hearts. And so we should talk about the secret ending. So, the secret ending is Sora wakes up in The World Ends With You, which is actually a very fantastic RPG for the Nintendo DS that was made by Tetsuya Nomura, the same guy who directs Kingdom Hearts. He wakes up in that world, and Riku wakes up in another world that's not the same world, that is a thinly veiled stand-in for Nomura's version of what he wanted Final Fantasy 15 to be. So they couldn't give Kairi and Sora a happy finale. They had to cliffhanger the fact that he died, so that then you now want to go play the next game or DLC. And when I saw that, my reaction was, oh, fuck you, and I turned the game off. I was done. Like, before the end of the game, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna go do all the optional stuff, I'm gonna make Ultimate Weapon, I'm gonna do all the super bosses. I eventually did fight the super boss. But I went from 100% committed to wanting to complete the game 100% to I never want to play this again because the ending was so completely unsatisfying. And I know some people are going to say that, oh, Nomura said this isn't the end of Sora's story, this is the end of Xehanort's story. But there's a difference. You can end a character's arc without ending their story completely. They just begin a new arc. Sora's story never had an arc conclusion. Every other character's story in this game, the arc that they've been building for 17 years, come to a conclusion. Riku's arc about battling the darkness or embracing the darkness, that comes to a conclusion. You know, Roxas and Xion coming back to life and finally being able to exist with their friend Axel, that story arc concludes. Ventus and Terra coming back, being saved, alongside Aqua being saved, so they can all be together. That comes to a conclusion. The only story arc of characters that don't get a conclusion of any kind are Sora and Kairi. And because Kairi is such a non-character, I'm going to focus on Sora. Sora, as a character in Kingdom Hearts 3, is basically wheels spinning. It seems like he's doing a bunch of actions, but never progressing. So he's like a car that's stuck in the snow that's just spinning their wheels and staying in place. You can end Kingdom Hearts 3's arc with Xehanort being defeated, and you can also give Sora and Kairi their ending that they've been teasing since literally Kingdom Hearts 1. Sora even says out loud in the last few minutes of the game that the entire purpose of his journey has been to get Kairi, to save Kairi, to bring them back together, because at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 1, she disappears. His entire motivation for the entire franchise has been saving Riku and Kairi. Riku got a completion to his arc, so he's here. Kairi, again, gets taken away at the last minute. She gets killed off in the stupidest way. She gets completely fridged and makes her an irrelevant character, just so that Sora can then save her but sacrifice himself in the process, so that they can't be together at the end of the game. You can make them be together and still have a story hook for the next game. Kingdom Hearts 2 did exactly that. It ended with all three protagonists being together and being happy, and their arcs up to that point being completed. Sora found Kairi. Kairi found the strength to actually fight on her own, because she does more fighting in Kingdom Hearts 2 than she does in this fucking game. And Riku conquered the darkness and saved his friends in his own way. And ta-da! Everything is happy. And then the next arc happens. That could have been this. The ending of Kingdom Hearts 2 should have been the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3. And the ending of Kingdom Hearts 2, or 3, should have been the ending of Kingdom Hearts 2. And the reason I'm saying, it should have been a happy ending is because Kingdom Hearts is a shonen anime video game. It is basically a shonen anime. And 99% of the time in shonen animes, there is this ending where it's like, the journey was very satisfying, but all the characters are together at the end. Hooray. And I've seen, and Howie, if you're watching this, you're not the only one who said this, so I don't want to feel like I'm picking on your argument when you're not here to defend yourself, but I've seen other people say that, this is like the end of the first season of an anime. And I would say the anime comparison is very apt. I have made the anime comparison myself. I've been saying on Twitter that Kingdom Hearts is like a shonen anime, but this is not like the ending of the first season of a story. Each game is like a season of the story. This was like the finale of the series. But with the knowledge that we knew, there was going to be another series. Like, we knew the series was going to continue, but this should have been a satisfying conclusion to Sora, his arc, in this first series. Because it is advertised like it is the end of this grand story. Even people put so much stock on Nomura saying that Kingdom Hearts is not going to be over, but this is just the end of Xehanort's story, that they ignore the fact that every other single character also gets a conclusion arc in the story, except for Sora and Kairi. And it's so unsatisfying that Nomura edgelord cliffhangered the ending of Sora for the next game that I'm like, I was so emotionally invested in this story franchise. And I know how goofy it is. It's fucking Kingdom Hearts. It's so stupid and schlocky and emotionally manipulative. Great, that's fine. I still liked it. Believe what you want about me because of that. But the fact that they cliffhangered Sora's fate completely divested my emotional investment in this franchise. And I probably will end up checking out the game because I'm a fucking addict for this kind of stuff. And Nomura knew exactly what he was doing when he didn't give a satisfying conclusion. But I've severely lost emotional interest in the storyline. And it's so disappointingly sad and angering to me that I'm still thinking about it today, on Monday, February 4th. And I beat the game like 4 days ago. And I've been thinking about how upset I have been at the end of this game since then. Like, imagine being so emotionally invested in a franchise, and then the very last 15 seconds of it ruins it for you. It's like legitimate. I know everyone makes a joke about triggering is like not a real thing. It like was legitimately triggering to me, and I'm still fucking upset about it. Imagine if you were invested in the Harry Potter series, and the very end of the book ends with Harry's death. And then, but the implication is like, stay tuned for the next book series to see how he gets out of it. I feel like a lot of people will readily be like, oh, fuck you, J.K. Rowling, I'm not interested, bye. It's just, it pisses me off. It makes me sad and it makes me angry, and I don't... The ending was ruined to cliffhanger it into the next entry. Whereas you could put seeds of the next story into this game without doing what he did. And I want to talk about very briefly The World Ends With You and Final Fantasy 15, because it's relevant to the end of this game. So Tetsuya Nomura, the director of Kingdom Hearts, was originally part of he was the creative force behind The World Ends With You, which, like I said, is one of the best RPGs I've ever played. And if you have a DS still, and you can find a way to download it, I don't know if it's on the Switch yet. I heard rumors that it was coming to the Switch, but I don't know if that actually went through because I don't have a Switch. If it's on the Switch, go for it, get it. But if you can play it and you haven't played it, play it, it's great. Also, now, if you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, you should probably fucking play it because now it's relevant to the story. And actually, the World Ends With You characters were actually in Dream Drop Distance in Traverse Town. Neku, Beat and Rhyme, and Joshua, the 4 characters that show up, are the main characters from The World Ends With You. Also, Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy 15, Nomura was on that project, and the story of Final Fantasy 15's development is muddled as hell, kind of like this game. But originally, at the very beginning of development, Final Fantasy 15 was not called Final Fantasy 15. It was called Final Fantasy Versus 13, and Tetsuya Nomura eventually left that team due to creative differences, and he was pissed off about it. Consequently, even though it sold very well, Square Enix did not greenlight a sequel to The World Ends With You 2, which they should have, because it was a great game. But they didn't. So, in Kingdom Hearts 3, Tetsuya Nomura, in the Toy Story level, opens up the Toy Story level with this commercial for a game that does not exist, called Varus Rex or something like that. And if you look at Varus Rex, the commercial, and it's weird because when I was playing it, this Varus Rex commercial is like super high res. It's like the highest res cutscene in the entire game. And then the revelation is that it's just a commercial that Rex and Mr. Potato Head are watching on TV. But it's such a super high-tech, high-res commercial for this non-existent game until you compare that commercial to the very first teaser of Final Fantasy Versus 13, and you can see they look almost the same. And Riku, at the very end of this game in the secret ending, wakes up in the world of Varus Rex. And Sora, in this game, at the very end of the secret ending, wakes up in the world of The World Ends With You. Tetsuya Nomura cliffhangered the end of a 17-year-old game franchise, the first major story arc of that franchise, by taking the protagonist and not giving them a satisfying ending, and instead putting them into the world of 2 games that he didn't get to continue, and he was pissed off about it. It is the most arrogant, childish, edgelord way to fuck over the end of this franchise because you didn't get your way for 2 other games. It is so unbelievably offensive to do this to this franchise, so that now Kingdom Hearts, whatever's the next thing, has to incorporate The World Ends With You, and has to incorporate this version of Final Fantasy 15 that he wanted to do, because he stuck Riku and Sora into their worlds. It's so fucking arrogant and obnoxious. And I cannot believe that is how Kingdom Hearts 3 ends. And so that is why I'm so pissed off and upset about the end of this game. He cliffhangered, blue-balled the end of this story to put the characters in his other game worlds that he didn't get to conclude. What a fucking joke. That's so infuriating to me. So that is basically why I'm so pissed off about the end of this game. There are a bunch of other plot holes. I can just list them off real fast. The black box that's been the black box that literally is a MacGuffin. It is a thing that all the bad guys want that we don't know what's in. Still isn't resolved. The role of the foretellers, which is characters from the mobile and the browser game, and I cannot believe how much lore is in the fucking pay-to-win mobile game that you have to know for this stupid-ass game. It is insulting that Square Enix and Nomura put so much of the fucking important story of Kingdom Hearts franchise into the mobile game that you have to know it. But none of that gets resolved. What Lushu's purpose is, one of the foretellers, we don't know. He's just supposed to view history. Why are Maleficent and Pete even in the game if they're after the black box that never gets resolved? Their entire part could just have been removed and nothing of value would have been lost. The Master of Masters and his stupid vague plan that we never learn anything of is never given any more information about. Axel and Syx are said to have a female friend that they've been looking for that no one knows who it is. There's like 6 different theories of 6 different individual characters who it could be. Everyone online is fighting about who this character could be. Each single person arguing about it is certain who it is. I have fucking no idea. I don't even care about this plot point. But they introduced this plot point in like the fucking last few minutes of the story. The power of waking, like I said, is completely unexplained. They never even say that there's like a consequence for using or misusing the power of awakening until literally at the end when they need to explain why Sora died for no reason. The whole part of the last world afterlife section of the game never gets explained. It's completely nonsensical. You're collecting like 111 versions of Sora to come back to life, but then it's Kairi who brings him back to life anyway. That never gets explained beyond Kairi is a being of light, so she could do it. It's like, alright, great, I guess. And like I said earlier, it's so incredible to me how willing I was to forgive all of this in my childish pursuit of I just want to get to the end and get the satisfying conclusion. I don't care that none of this makes sense. I just want to get my conclusion. Yay! And then it gets robbed from me in the last 20 seconds. And then I look back at the franchise and I'm like, what a fucking shit show garbage fire I've been just ignoring for so long. And it's just, it makes me legitimately sad. Like it like depressed me for almost the first. I beat it on Thursday and I was like legitimately depressed at how unsatisfying the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3 was. And I don't know, man. They finally have a working engine for this game in Unreal 4 or whatever the engine they're using, so hopefully whatever the next entry is, whether it's DLC or if it's an actual game, and if it's a game, it's going to be a side game. It's not going to be Kingdom Hearts 4 because Nomura, haha, fuck you, he likes to make 17 side games rather than actual sequels. So I've kind of emotionally checked out, and it's sad. It's sad that I went from this is the most emotionally invested I've been in any video game series, even more than like Warcraft before it disappointed me, even more than stuff like Resident Evil, which I'm a super huge fan of. Final Fantasy is very high up there. Specific games and how emotionally invested I am in them. It's so sad that this was the game I was the most emotionally invested into as a video game fan. To now, I'm just like, I can't keep caring about a game where now it is clear that the director is not interested in actually giving a satisfying conclusion to the main character's story arc. It's so for people who are like, I'm just excited to play the next game. I hope you are. I hope you're excited to play the DLC or the Kingdom Hearts 3.5 or whatever they're going to do next. But I hope you realize that Nomura is never going to give you that satisfying end to that conclusion. He's never going to. Kairi and Sora are never going to end up together. They're never going to be together at the end of this game series when it finally ends. It's never going to happen. Because Nomura is a 40-year-old edgelord who is butthurt that his other 2 games didn't go out the way he wanted, so he cliffhanger at the end of a 17-year-old game franchise first major story by not giving it a conclusion. So, I don't know. So that's my review of Kingdom Hearts. Very, very mixed opinions. And the reason that it bothers me so much is because I liked so much of the game that the end of it ruined it for me. It's strange. I was willing to forgive so much of the game's problems. I was willing to forgive the nonsense combat, the easy combat, the world's not mattering, all the plot holes, nothing being explained. I was willing to forgive all of that if I could have gotten a satisfying end to this story arc that I invested 17 years of my fandom in. And because I didn't, I'm upset that now it's spoiling other parts of the series that I love. Like, it's spoiling my love of Kingdom Hearts 2. And how much I think that game is just so fucking well done. It's spoiling what I think about it. And it pisses me off. It's ruining the other games in the franchises in my mind. I can feel it happening now. Now I'm more jaded toward them. Even though they haven't changed at all, it's this fucking game's last 20 seconds of this edgelord developer cliffhangering it is ruining the other games that I loved. And it's infuriating to me. So, I don't know, man. You can call it man-baby, nerd, rage-triggered, autistic, screeching, loser, whatever. I don't care. But people know what they like and know what they don't. And I'm noticing, because I finished the game very quickly, because I both was off and I luckily wasn't working on the day that it came out, and also I wasn't working for 2 days after that. So I got the blitz through the game. But I'm noticing now as more and more people finish it, they're coming away with it feeling unsatisfied, and that's what it is. It's unsatisfying. The ending of Kingdom Hearts 3 is not satisfying because it's a cliffhanger. So there we go. You can call me whatever you want because I cared so much about this stupid game franchise, and I still do care about it. But at the end of the day, fuck, man. However I felt about WoW disappointing me, Kingdom Hearts 3 was 17 million times worse than that. And it pisses me off because so much of the game I was willing to forgive, and I was having such a good time with things that now that I look back on are actually pretty average, that this entire thing got tainted by an edgelord developer pissing on the finale of his franchise's first story arc. So that's Kingdom Hearts 3. I can't even give it a score because I would have been like, oh, 5 out of 5 and then 1 out of 5, or 10 out of 10, but then the ending came, so 2 out of 10. Like, I can't. The score went from like very high and well regarded, not the best game. Even if I would have got the ending that I wanted. And by the way, I'm not mad that I didn't get a specific ending that I wanted. I was willing to accept literally any ending that wasn't a cliffhanger. If they would have said, oh, we went back in time and undid the entire franchise, and that's how we stopped him, and Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 and Birth by Sleep and all those didn't even count because they got retconned out of time, I would have been like, alright, fine, that's cool. Can we get the satisfying ending that we want? I'll accept that. I would have accepted literally any ending of the franchise's first arc if it would actually have ended. But it didn't end, so that's why. Like, I would have accepted it was all a dream, time-traveling retcons, whatever other ass-pull nonsense you could imagine. But we didn't get an ending, we got a cliffhanger. And it's fucking infuriating, and people are defending it because of Tetsuya Nomura saying this isn't the end of the franchise, this is the end of Xehanort's arc. But that's not an excuse for what happened here. Like, you can both have a continuation of the franchise and still end the story arc. Kingdom Hearts 2, like I said, literally did exactly that. And it's... ugh. It just pisses me off, man. It pissed me off. It, like, legitimately made me sad. I woke up today still thinking about it, being sad about it. And so now, hopefully, now that I've made this hour-long video, I can start feeling a little fucking better about it, because I'm still upset. I can't stress enough to people who are like, why is this fucking fat loser giving a shit about this stupid game? It's a 17-year franchise. Kingdom Hearts 1 came out in 2002. 17 years ago. A 17-year emotional investment that gets spoiled in the last 20 seconds of a 200-plus hour franchise that you're emotionally invested into. You can't see why someone would be upset about that. And now that more people are finishing it online, a lot of people are unsatisfied with it. So, Kingdom Hearts 3, I can't even give it a rating. I don't even know if you watch this and the whole thing was spoiled, but you still didn't play it, and you're wondering, should I even play it? I can't even give an answer to that, because I feel like if I say yes, I'm enabling a I'm enabling a developer who has such an ego that he ruined his own franchise at the last 20 seconds. So even though the combat's fun, even though that the worlds are beautiful looking, even though that the music is fantastic, even though that they give you all the fan service that you want, except for the very end, they give it all to you. The fucking finally the fucking reunion of Roxas and Xion and Naxel and Ventus and Terra and Aqua and Naminé coming back if you cared about her for some reason, even though Naminé is more of a character than fucking Kairi is, which is ironic considering what Naminé and Kairi's relationship is. I don't know if I can even recommend it. I honestly don't. It is such an anomaly to me when you include the ending in it and the secret ending that I don't know, man. I don't know. Kingdom Hearts 3. What a fucking roller coaster that game is. Going from like to the end, just going and just crashing. I don't know. Kingdom Hearts 3. That's my feelings on it. Hopefully, if anyone even watches this far, thank you. But this was more for my own mental sanity to get all my feelings out on this instead of just boiling over on Twitter and tweeting a spoiler on accident and then deleting it and, you know, vaguely talking about why I didn't like something so I'm not spoiling it. I just wanted to get all my thoughts in one fucking place. It's basically like a video journal right now. So, Nomura, I can't believe that you did this to such a long franchise. I think it is one of the most arrogant things I've seen a game developer do, which is fucking impressive in a world with Activision and EA and Capcom. It's really impressive. Kingdom Hearts 3. Thanks for watching, everyone.